April 7th, 2019. Daniel Bryan vs Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. KofiMania has been running wild, and without a doubt, if anyone deserves a WrestleMania title shot push, it's Kofi Kingston. It seems as if the entire WWE fan base is behind him. No matter who your favorite wrestler is, who you like, who you hate, it's hard to watch this Kofi storyline unfold and not cheer for him. This is a man who has been on WWE television since 2008, has been a constant professional through the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, has always come to do his job and always did his job well. We saw this man grow in the company. We saw this man go from being the random Jamaican guy on ECW who really isn't Jamaican to being the constant mid-card guy for so many years. Many thought that was it, Kofi the mid-card guy. Everyone saw his talent and everyone knew he could be a star, but for some reason WWE never really capitalized. It was clear from the jump that he had talent, it was clear he was special, but like I said, for some reason he was never really given the shot. But time went on and here we are, 11 years later, Kofi has his shot. WrestleMania in one of the most anticipated matches of the year. Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. To understand why this is so special, we have to go back to the beginning. Let's take a look at Kofi's long, hard journey to this moment. It was 2005 and Kofi was 23 years old, and let's just say he wasn't really living the dream yet. 23 years old, fresh out of college, working in a cubicle where he sat there proofreading Staples catalogs. Then one day he decided to try something new. He walked into chaotic wrestling training, an hour away from his job, and here's how he described it when he walked in. As soon as I walked in, I looked at those two rings right there and I knew this was where I was supposed to be. After starting his training in 2005, he made his debut the year after. His debut was June 4th, 2006. He competed in various local promotions and had various matches. And in just 3 months, he signed to a WWE developmental deal. 3 months to get signed to the WWE. That is actually insane. I've been playing soccer my whole life and I'm barely good enough to be a starter on my summer league team. And this man, in 3 months, got signed by the WWE. In developmental back then, there was no NXT. It was OVW and Deep South Wrestling. His peers during that time were MVP, TJ Wilson, Cesaro, and Harry Smith. Eventually, Kofi found himself relocating to FCW. Kofi was just paying his dues in WWE developmental, way before it was under the bright lights of NXT. He worked as a tag team partner for another developmental star in Tommaso Whitney from Chaotic Wrestling. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's Tommaso Ciampa. And then in December 2007, vignettes started playing on ECW every week. The Kofi Kingston debut was coming. Think of the most typical mid-2000 vignettes, and that's exactly what we got. After having matches on ECW the likes of Shelton Benjamin, he was eventually drafted to Raw, and that is where Kofi really made his name. Kofi wrestled on ECW for about 6 months before being drafted to Raw, and he won the IC title almost immediately from Chris Jericho in June 2008. So he started training in 2005, and by 2008 he beat Chris Jericho for the IC title. Kofi went from starting his training to winning the IC belt in a little over 3 years. That is insane. Later that year, he would go on to become a 2-time tag champ with CM Punk. By the end of 2008, Kofi had been an IC champ and a tag team champ. He was legit becoming one of the hottest young talents in the company. And then in 2009, he entered his first Royal Rumble event, beginning a 10-year tradition of having the most incredible ways to not get eliminated in a Royal Rumble match. The following month, Kofi was headed to the big stage. It's No Way Out 2009, the Elimination Chamber match was being held for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and Kofi Kingston was going to participate. John Cena, Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, Kofi Kingston, Mike Knox, and Kane were all about to battle it out for the World Heavyweight Championship. What a star-studded match, especially with the iconic Mike Knox being in it. But jokes aside, Kofi, in little over a year in the WWE, was competing for a World Heavyweight Championship match with Cena, Mysterio, Jericho, and Kane. It was crazy, but then it all fell apart. Before the match, Edge attacked Kingston, performed a concerto on the steel steps, and locked himself in the chamber pod, replacing Kingston in the match. Regardless, it was clear that WWE held him in high regards. Even though he didn't get to participate in the match, he was still on the card, he was still listed, and he was still young. Big things were coming for Kofi Kingston. Kofi would end up having a solid 2009 and having a great run as US champ, 4-month reign at 126 days. Various title reigns, solid matches, became a fan favorite. Kofi's career up to this point had been short, but he exceeded all the expectations. Due to this, towards the end of 2009, Kofi was about to get into his biggest program yet, his feud with Randy Orton. It was Bragging Rights 2009, and it was Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. Kofi was on Team Raw, and Big Show was also on Team Raw, but he turns heel and chokeslammed Kingston, which allowed Jericho to win. Team Raw lost. Later on in the show, Kofi and his teammate that night, Cody Rhodes, started arguing on whose fault it was that Team Raw lost. So when Rhodes and Ted DiBiase interfered on Randy Orton's behalf during his WWE Championship match, Kingston ran in with a chair and chased him out of the arena. Orton lost that match, and the next night blamed Kofi on why he lost. Thus began Orton vs Kingston. This would lead to the two being captains of a 5-man Survivor Series tag team match against each other. But before this, we got the biggest moment of Kofi's career, the iconic MSG boom drop against Orton. He had the MSG fans in the palm of his hands. The place was wild, the place was deafening, fans were going crazy, jumping and screaming as Kofi jumped off the stands onto Orton, who was laying on the table. Kofi was a star, and the next Sunday's Survivor Series, Kofi Kingston's team won after he was a sole survivor, eliminating Randy Orton to win. What a moment, what an opportunity. Kofi put on a show, eliminated Orton, and when I tell you the fans love Kofi, they loved him. The fans were behind him every night. He was a huge face, and even celebrity angles revolved around the Orton and Kingston angle when Mark Cuban was brought in. So with one victory apiece, the two wrestled again at TLC, and Orton won. Regardless, Kofi was still positioned to be a star. How could he have not been? The fans loved him. Even though he didn't beat Orton at TLC, they still had big plans for him. There were rumors at the time that the plans were for him to win the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania. At that point, that was basically a guaranteed title victory. And then it happened. The infamous stupid. During a triple threat match in mid-January, Kingston apparently botched a spot. Apparently Kofi was supposed to stay down for the punt kick, but he still kept getting up. Now this angered Orton and caused him to scream stupid after hitting him with a stiff RKO. Now for us, this might seem like a minor incident, something not that serious, but it was an incident that would put heat on Kingston from backstage officials and Randy Orton, and this is what many people say cost him his ongoing push in the company in 2010. Something as minor as that was possibly the reason of his cooldown. Now these are all rumors, nobody knows for sure what happened unless you worked backstage in WWE at that point, but from all the news reports and all the insiders, this is what happened. And then Kofi was in the Elimination Chamber match that year, and he didn't win. And then Kofi was eventually added to the Money in the Bank match just 1 week before WrestleMania. But then during this time, something else also happened. So during the weeks leading up to WrestleMania, this was a time that Vince and Kofi Kingston had a fight. Yes, you heard me right, not just a verbal fight, but it got physical. So this is all taken from Chris Jericho's third book. I definitely recommend you check it out. So let's go on with the story. So days before WrestleMania 26, Vince McMahon was on a private jet with a bunch of WWE superstars ready to go to a press conference. The plane landed and Kofi got up to leave, and Vince passed and said a comment.
Maybe you'll get over one of these days.
Kofi was just like, whatever, and didn't really say anything at all and just proceeded to leave the plane. But her buddy, good old Y2J Chris Jericho, who was drunk out of his mind, probably very similar to how he was at the Kiss concert, stopped Kofi and told him to go back and to stand up to Vince. Jericho tells him that Vince loves when someone stands up to him, man. Instead of being a pussy, Kofi, the fucking GOAT, turns out is about that action. He is about that life. And Kofi went back to the steps, confronted Vince McMahon and said, "Do you have a problem with me?" And Vince is just like,
"Maybe I do. What are you gonna do about it?"
But he held his own and he asked Vince, "Do you want me to do something about it?" Vince prepared to say something, but instead just double-legged Kofi in the middle of his sentence, and they started rolling on the ground, wrestling, and they scrambled and they fought. And then Vince just gets up casually and says,
"That's the way to do it."
Vince just laughed again and got off the plane like nothing ever happened. So Jericho mentioned in his book that he doesn't know whether Kofi earned Vince's respect that night, but he sure earned Jericho's. So WrestleMania came and Kofi did not win the Money in the Bank. And after WrestleMania, man, Kofi just wasn't the same. After this, Kofi was seen on Superstars various times. In less than 5 months, he went from closing out Raw at MSG to being on Superstars. Luckily though, Kofi did recover from Superstars, however. From 2010 till 2014, Kofi was a mid-card staple, a successful one at that. 5 years into his WWE career, he was now a 4-time Intercontinental Champion, a 3-time United States Champion, and a 3-time Tag Team Champion. but for some reason he was never given that main event push once again. He was never moved up again. He was stuck on the mid card. Did he have great matches? Yes. Was he still amazing in the ring? Yes. Was he still giving us amazing Rumble moments? Yes. But whenever I saw him, all that came to my mind was, what if? What if he got that push in 2010? What if he won the Money in the Bank in 2010? What if he was given another push? What if? He went from Raw to SmackDown, back to Raw, was constant in the mid-card scene, but it was clear that he could be something big. He just needed to be given that shot. Instead, it was IC titles, tag titles with random partners for about 4 years. Now, obviously, that isn't the worst thing to be doing on the WWE roster. I'm sure a lot of wrestlers would love to do that for 4 years. I know I would. However, it all goes back to the fact that everyone knew that Kofi was main event level talent. By 2014, it had seemed that Kofi was given a spot in the WWE, and that was it. He was going to be the mid-card guy, help put people over, do crazy high spots every now and then, obviously the Rumble stuff, but he was never going to be that main event player that everyone knew he could be. But then, it was a new day. Kofi Kingston was a solid mid-card guy with great talent who could have possibly coasted the rest of his career just based on his previous accomplishments. Big E was the former enforcer of Dolph Ziggler, and everyone knew he was talented and was just coming off an IC title reign, but everyone thought that he lacked personality. Xavier Woods was the one whose WWE career was just getting started, and it wasn't looking too bright. It was Woods' idea for the three to be in a group, and the rest is history. Kingston explained it the best. Woods was trying to get his feet off the ground and never had been given a fair shot to do so. Myself, I had done a lot with the WWE, but I was getting kind of bored and a lot of people were getting bored with me. Big E kind of saw his career going a similar path, really never been given a chance to showcase his personality. They always want him to be the big strong guy. And that is 100% true. So they debuted with a heroic black gospel gimmick, very different than what we know of them as now. Their initial run was solid, getting solid reactions. However, it was a night after WrestleMania when things started clicking. It was a night when loud chants of New Day sucks filled the arena, which carried over into the following weeks. These reactions led them to turning heel, and their heel turn was a huge success. They were given freedom and they were allowed to be themselves, so even though they were heels, people started loving them. See, now for the first time, you saw Kofi's personality, you saw Big E's personality. They were having fun, they were doing them. It was clear and it was organic, and you knew it wasn't some creative written shtick. Creative could never think of half the stuff they were doing. New Day eventually became faces and started selling merch and became very popular. They were insanely over, and they were having great matches on top of that, and became some of the most over people in the business. All the while, they reigned as WWE Tag Team Champions for 483 days, a company record. The best thing about the New Day is that every time they noticed something was getting boring or old, they always reinvented themselves and got themselves over again by some other way. They were funny when they needed to be, they were serious when they needed to be. The fans loved them. They became a part of pop culture. Booty-O's are pop culture. They are huge online the community. They are cutting promos on the WWE app back in the day. On the WWE YouTube page, you can always find them doing something. Xavier Woods' YouTube channel also helped them with that. See, the fans got to see them in every step grow throughout the 4 years. The fans got to see them grow. The fans feel like they know who these three men are, so that's why they have so much support. They were on the forefront of the SmackDown on Fox campaign. They released an actual book in 2018. They became staples of the WWE that people could relate to, that people know they're having fun, and they just were lovable. All because they believed in themselves and they were themselves, and they took advantage of an opportunity given to them. Big Show actually told Kofi that he thought New Day would ruin his career. He thought Kofi was too good to be in a group like the New Day. Little did he know this would be the best thing for Kofi. Because of the New Day, Kofi was given a platform to be himself. He was given a chance to shine, and he took the chance and he ran with it. All three of these men helped each other's careers immensely, and it's amazing how far they've come. The most memorable feud of the New Day so far has to be their feud with the Usos. From rap battles to promos to their countless matches, without a doubt the best tag team rivalry in a long time in the WWE. They competed in the first ever tag team Hell in a Cell match last year and knocked the opportunity out of the park. New Day showed they can be funny, be silly, and have great matches and have great promos. And now in 2019, after all those promos, all those rap battles, crazy matches, pancakes, all the memorable things New Day has done, all the fan support they've gathered over the years, it all led to this. KofiMania. KofiMania is something we can all get behind. Somehow you can relate to Kofi regardless of who you are. That's what makes this story so amazing, and it's something that all fans can get behind. It all started before Elimination Chamber this year. An Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title was taking place, and one of the entrants was Mustafa Ali. However, Ali got a concussion and was pulled for the match, and it was announced that Kofi Kingston would take his spot. Crazy how 9 years ago he was the one being replaced, and now he is the replacement. So during the builds up to the match, people started talking, speculation started rising, back to the what ifs we talked about earlier. What if Kofi somehow wins? What if Kofi finally becomes champion? In the match, Kofi put on a show. He was the last person left with Bryan, and they gave it their all, and they did definitely put on a show. However, Bryan got the win, but the real people champion that night was Kofi Kingston. Kofi closed the show. He was the last person you saw as the show went off the air, not Bryan. Kofi got the evasion as his brothers ran to the ring and carried him. It was a great moment. Kofi Kingston was a star. It reminded everyone just how good he is, and if you give him the opportunity, he would shine, and he shines. On SmackDown, Kofi began pushing for a title match against Bryan, one-on-one, his first ever one-on-one match for the WWE Championship in his 11-year career. And then it happens. On the February 19th episode of SmackDown, Kofi Kingston pinned Bryan clean in the middle of the ring during a 6-man tag match, and during that match we got one of the greatest callbacks in WWE history. Remember when Orton called Kofi stupid? Kofi finally got his revenge 9 years later.
Bryan. Ultimately, we know the only time almost
he dropped Randy Orton and screamed stupid. It was perfect, sweet justice. Kofi pinned Bryan clean in the middle of the ring. The fans went crazy. Music came in and they celebrated with him in the ring. It was a great moment. In a match with all these stars like AJ Styles and Orton, Kofi was the fan favorite. He was the loudest reaction getter. And Shane McMahon came out and announced that at Fastlane it would be Kofi versus Bryan for the WWE Championship. The fans were ecstatic. Finally, after 11 years in the company, Kofi Kingston was going to get his first ever singles WWE Championship match, and also had the opportunity to become the first black WWE champion since The Rock, putting himself in a very exclusive club, and also the chance to be the first ever African WWE champion. Kofi was already the first African born performer in WWE history, and now he could become the first ever African born WWE champion. What a moment that was going to be. Breaking boundaries, overcoming the odds. It was Kofi's time. And then it all changed. The next week on SmackDown, as the contract was about to get signed, Vince McMahon came out. Yeah, the same Vince McMahon that Kofi fought on a plane 9 years ago, and announced that instead of Kofi versus Bryan at Fastlane, it was going to be Kevin Owens instead. A random returning Kevin Owens that had no business being in the title match was just given the opportunity that Kofi had been fighting for weeks. Remember when I said how everyone could relate to this story? There's a good chance that this has happened to you at work or at school or wherever. You worked your ass off for an opportunity. You did everything right. You did everything you could just for your efforts to be overlooked, and your opportunity ends up being given to someone else for no apparent reason. Kofi versus Bryan was no longer happening at Fastlane, and then Kofi posted this tweet. The second paragraph is where it really hits home. My entire career has been a series of ups and downs, starts and stops. I really shouldn't be surprised, but this one hurt. We came so close, and I say we because this journey has been bigger than just me. It's Wood's journey, it's E's journey, it's every one of you who has followed and supported my career for the past 11 years. To have it all stripped away so suddenly is painful, to put it mildly. I appreciate you all more than you know, and I thank you for all your love and support. Mark my words, we will be back. The journey doesn't end here. Fastlane came, and the man who was supposed to be fighting for the WWE Championship was on the pre-show. But Kofi, once again, he did his thing like he had been doing for the previous 11 years. He went out there, he performs, and he did it well. After winning the pre-show match, Kofi was told that Vince McMahon wanted to see him in regards to the championship match on the main card. The New Day went to Vince and asked him to put him back in the match, and Vince agreed. Maybe it was going to be okay. Kofi versus Owens versus Bryan. Kofi still had his chance. Kofi went out to a great reaction and waited for his opponents, but sadly he didn't get a title match. Instead, he found himself in a 2-on-1 handicap match against the Bar. Big E and Woods came out to help him, only to get intercepted by Nakamura and Rusev. Kofi's night was done. No title match, no victory, no history. Then came SmackDown. Mr. McMahon was in the ring and he said he would talk about Kofi's aspiration for his title match. The New Day came out and Big E dropped this fire line, basically saying what we've all been seeing. He talks about how they jump through every hoop, they do every meet and greet, and they never buck the system or threaten to leave, and they still get treated like garbage. He goes on to say, Kofi's been grinding for 11 years. He deserves better. And Vince replies saying Kofi doesn't deserve a damn thing. And then we get these amazing lines. Referring to Kofi, he doesn't complain about being required to be away from his family, missing weddings, birthdays, never been trick-or-treating with his kids. 2 days ago, his son lost his first tooth and he wasn't there to see the look on his face when he found the money the tooth fairy left for him. He never complained about any of this, or that he's never let someone like him contend or compete for the WWE Championship. It was so powerful, so touching, and touched on so many factors. Vince, all he could really respond was with this. If Kofi wants a title match, all he has to do is beat Randy Orton and he's going to be the #1 contender. But then Samoa Joe comes out and McMahon says all he has to do is beat Samoa Joe. And then the Bar comes out and of course all Kofi has to do is beat them. Vince says Kofi has to beat them all in a gauntlet match next week if he wants to have a title match. So he would have to run the gauntlet, defeat Sheamus, Cesaro, Eric Rowan, Samoa Joe, and Randy Orton all in one night. And somehow the week after, Kofi Kingston did it. Against all odds. Shout out Tupac. He did it. But there was one more. Daniel Bryan as a bonus opponent announced by McMahon after Kofi already won the gauntlet. It was intense. It was hype. It was perfect. But Kofi just couldn't close the deal. Daniel Bryan won. It looked like as all hope was lost, the dream was over. Maybe he was just going to be a B+ player. But as one former B+ player showed us in the past, you just got to keep going. Kofi was down, but he was not out. Shout out Cameron. Next episode of SmackDown was announced for Kofi Kingston to go to WrestleMania to face Bryan for the WWE Championship. His brothers, his ride or die members, Big E and Woods, would have to run their own gauntlet. His fate was in their hands. They all came to the dance together, and now it's time for his brothers to hold it down one last time. So New Day comes out and they beat Gallows and Anderson. They beat Nakamura and Rusev. They beat the Bar, but after the match, the Bar hits him with a double powerbomb. And now it's time for the Usos. Remember how I told you their best feud was against the Usos, their classic matches? During New Day's run since 2014, their best matches without a doubt have been the Usos. Countless matches, countless classics. And now it's time for one more classic. Usos versus the New Day. Can the Usos destroy the dream of Kofi Kingston? Jay grabs a mic and said they fought wars against the New Day and that Kofi deserved the title opportunity. Jimmy said he's earned their respect and the respect of the fans and every single person in the locker room. And then they forfeited the match. One of the realest moments I've seen in WWE history. You can tell it was genuine. You can tell it was true. And you just knew it was true. 11 years of hardship. 11 years. People have come and gone, but Kofi was the one man who stayed. He put in the work and the Usos knew this and the locker room knew this. It was simply beautiful, masterful storytelling, and now it's time for Bryan and Rowan to come out and to see if they can end the dream. The New Day ended up winning by countout in one of the loudest reactions of all time. It was emotional, it was uplifting, it was simply beautiful. Kofi came out and celebrated. His brothers were his keepers. It was beautiful. Vince announces in the back that Kofi got his match at WrestleMania. So here we are, 11 years after his debut, Kofi Kingston gets his singles match for the WWE Championship. From working at Staples to becoming a wrestler, getting signed in 3 months, grinding developmental, went to ECW, went to Raw, won championships, lit MSG on fire, had the issue with Orton, fought Vince, stayed on the mid-card, was almost forgotten about. Became known just for his Rumble spots. Everything about Kofi was just what if this, what if that. But he never complained. He went out there, did his job, was a professional the whole time, and gave it his all. Joined a random group with Big E and Xavier Woods, showcased his personality, became the most over act in the WWE, countless tag matches, countless classics, became a pop culture figure, went to the Elimination Chamber, got over, gave it his all, overcame the odds. His brothers did everything they could for him, and he never gave up, never lost hope, didn't let anything stop him. Whatever you think are the reasons he never got pushed early on, it didn't stop him. He kept fighting, and now he's an inspiration for countless people around the world. No matter your race, religion, your circumstances, you can do this. You can overcome the odds because life is hard, but you just gotta keep pushing. You can live your dream no matter how low things have gotten or if you feel you're stuck in a certain position. keep fighting, and that's what Kofi did. This is why people love the storyline, because there hasn't been a storyline like this in a long time. The last time you could relate to a struggle like this in wrestling, truly, honestly, in my opinion, was a Daniel Bryan storyline, and it just makes it so much better than now as Daniel Bryan as the heel. This storyline has been perfect, it's beautiful, it's inspirational, and it has captured the hearts of all wrestling fans across the world. And now, here we are, WrestleMania. What a story, what a journey. Will Kofi win? I hope so, and we're gonna find out. But I just hope we get the ending that Kofi deserves. Thank you for watching.